Hey, all, Rick here from Hamilton Sports Central for Week's Five's fantasy. So we have four storylines to watch in Week five or six CFL sleeper that you'll need in your lineup, and then the sit starts. Let's go with the four storylines to watch in Week Five. So it's the first one is, can Vernon Adams throw a touchdown in the Super Bowl? The Calgary Stampeders are 2-1 on the season. That's a thing. Thanks to a large part of the balanced offense attack through the air and on the ground, and some timely scores from their deep. I see Adrian. Surprisingly enough, Vernon Adams Jr. has yet to throw a pass in 25. We know that big play VA can throw strikes through 31, second most in 23, 64. But can he get his first this week? It'll be a tough task going against the Winnipeg Blue Bombers defense that has allowed just 3 touchdowns through the air, and only Hamilton has fewer with 2. Look for Adams Jr. to try to score his first major through the air in the inaugural Stampede Bowl at McMahon. Second is Battle of the QEW of 2025, the first meeting between the heated rivals. The Toronto Argonauts and the Hamilton Ticats feature two teams that are coming off their first wins of 2025. Both squads won last week on the strength of their defenses. Rookie defensive back Derek Blywicka was the hero of the Argos, scoring twice in his team win. One on a fumble recovery, which he returned for 105 yards to the house, and the other on a blocked field goal, which he picked up and ran for 120 yards for points. The 24-year-old became the first player to score a 100-yard defensive return and a 100-yard kickoff return in the same game. Ticats had rookie and vet score their first touchdown against Montreal, and first-year linebacker Derek Versek scored a pick six, and Hauser, seventh-year pickup, McLeod Bethel Thompson fumble in the end zone for a touchdown. You don't want to miss the first of the year between rivals, as each will be looking to take momentum from their week 4 wins into week 5. Quarterback watch. This one, it says, we have been doing this for a few weeks of the season. Eye on the quarterbacks in Saturday's matchup will be front and center. Davis Alexander and Nathan Rourke have both been limited in practice this week. According to TSN's Farhan Lalji, Rourke took the majority of first team reps. On Tuesday, a report from RDS Eric LeBlanc notes that Davis Alexander is expected to make a second straight game. We'll have to keep an eye out on the injury reports the rest of the week as the Lions look to improve on a 1-3 record, and Owls look to bounce back from their loss of 2025 last week against the Ticats. And the last one for Sunday is, it's not a must-win, but it sure feels like it. It's only week 5, and there's no need to hit the panic button on any team yet. But it sure feels like the Ottawa Redblacks and the Elks need a win this week. The Edmonton Elks have lost the first 3 games of the season and are avoiding falling to 0-4. They kept things with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers in week 4 with the game tied heading into the fourth quarter. But Winnipeg did what Winnipeg does best and closed out the game, holding Edmonton completely off the score sheet, scoring 13 points of their own. Ottawa, on the other hand, has still been without their star pivot, Drew Brown. Justin Crum has his second start of the second straight start last week against Toronto Argonauts. Who starts behind center this week remains to be seen, but Brown has been spotted taking first team reps on Wednesday. Whomever starts on Sunday, the Red Blacks are hoping to avoid falling to 1-4 this weekend. Now the team will want to dig any further into a hole to start the campaign. Which team will get the W to wrap up week 5? Okay, so now we're going to take a look at 6 fantasy sleepers you'll need in your lineup for week 5. Quarterback Nick Arbuckle, Toronto, 7.7K salary. A few would have suspected Nick Arbuckle to be the leader with 1,100 passing yards entering week 5, while his fantasy value remains limited with him uh, looking to throw interceptions. League worst 6. There's potential for a monster fantasy performance before he turns over the key to Chad Kelly in a couple of weeks. Nick Arbuckle has scored at least 13.8 fantasy points in his last 3 games and matches up against a Ticats defense that has held their own versus the pass. Hamilton has allowed a CFL low 2 passing majors and tops the league with the opponent's pass efficiency of 73. Arbuckle is a defense is a sleeper here because the Ticats struggle to get off the field, allowing 59.7 offensive plays per game. Eventually, Hamilton's weirdly will be exposed, and if Arbuckle can avoid mistakes, week 5 projection of 14.3 fantasy points has an go higher. Risky, yes, but there's 20 plus fantasy points in Arbuckle. This feels like the week happened. Running back Travis Thaddeus, Montreal 2.5 Saturday versus the L's run game felt like it had sand in its gears. Week 4, managing just 38 yards in the loss to Hamilton. McLeod Bethel Thompson, 5.5 salary, led the league with rushing yards as the team's running back trio of Travis Thaddeus, Sean Thomas Erlington, 6.5K salary, and Stevie Scott III, 3.5K salary, combined for 14 yards on 4 carries. Someone has to take the lead, and I bet there is Thaddeus, who averages about 6.8 yards per carry and carries 5 more carries of at least 10 yards and one tote a better of 20 yards. The opportunity awaits in the forms of Lions defense, which has allowed a league high 140.5 yards per game, and reeling from yielding 188 rushing yards last week in the loss to the Rough Riders. Potential return of Alexander Davis, 12,500 at pivot, will bluster the Montreal offense if he plays. If Thaddeus finds his way atop of the depth chart on Friday, fantasy could strongly consider the upside Thaddeus presence. Receiver Kevin Mattal, Toronto, 7.8 thousand salary. We'll cut to the chase here. Kevin Mattal getting a snap as short yardage quarterback has a lot of appealing. Watching him in week 4 over Ottawa would feel intriguing because if the young playmaker is getting extra touches at pivot, we want in. Mattal scored a 10.1 fantasy points in week 4 as the Argonauts come in new week as the league's most dependable receiver, catching 19 of his 20 targets. He's 13 with 194 yards and should see more looks than 4 he caught against the Red Blacks. The Argos should get him more involved down the field, so fantasy users will see a boost of his 64 depth yards per route if end of Mattal at pivot. His 9.2 fantasy points will receive a nice boost with a rushing major to go along with the next Julian DeAndre or John. The Elks are discovering the good things happen when Julian Grant is targeted downfield. Julian Grant put up 23.9 fantasy points in week 4 by catching 5 passes for 150 yards and 114. His 68-yard major was second straight game in which Grant had a reception of at least 51 yards. Having Julian Grant in the lineup is a worthy suggestion, considering that the Red Blacks have allowed league high 10 completions of better than 30 yards. Trey Ford, 12,000, targeted him 8 times in week 4, and with the new on offense beginning to come together, the comfort level should produce more quality numbers for the Elks to expose. Addition. Kevin Clarcius, Winnipeg, 2,500, Thursday. Beatfall, 4,000 has become a star. Nick Dembski, 10,700 continues to do Nick Dembski things. And Dalton Schoen is returning to form. Kevin Clarcius is brimming with potential and is only waiting to play his wares. So why not on Thursday Night Football? After catching 3 passes for 21 yards, his first 2 games, Clarcius pulled in 3 targets for 53 yards. In week 4, finishing with 4.3 fantasy points, Calgary has the second biggest pass defense, 241.3 yards, but the return of Brady Oliveira, 14K, will alter the focus of the Stampeders' defensive plan. Clarcius is similar to Wheatfall in that he only needs 1 to 3 plays to rack up fantasy points. With Zach Claris, 13,000. Looking for the most outstanding player he recently was, this feels like a good week for a low-key ad that could give 14 fantasy points. Jermaine Jackson, BC, 4,100 for BC. Over the last 2 games, Jermaine Jackson has had quite a quiet role. The newcomer caught 7 passes for 50 yards on 11 targets, while filling in for the injured Stanley Berryhill III, 7,000. Jackson's primary role is a kick returner, and he shows it signs he can be lining up from scrimmage. The Lions hope Nathan Rock, 13,900, will return to the lineup on Saturday, boosting fantasy potential of BC receiving corps. That includes Jackson, who will thrive against an Alouette pass defense, allowing 72.4% completion rate to opposing players. Now we are going to do the sits starts for week 5. Now we're going to do Winnipeg at Calgary. They're saying start Dalton Schoen, 10,000. He's getting there each week. Dalton Schoen is shaking off the rust from most of the 2024 with an injury that scored 11.9 and 13.8 fantasy points in the last 2 games. He's averaging a modest 11.5 yards per catch, still a notch or 2 off his career of 17.7 yards average, so there's room to grow. Eric Wheatfall, 7,900, has emerged as the Bombers' top deep threat, but Jones can still bring sheer terror to opposing defense. Got 1 of 3 targets for longer than 20 yards. And with 3 games under his belt, the pairing, Zach Claris, 13,500, will resume vertical attack and deep middle of the field if Winnipeg chooses to give Brady Oliveira 14,000 another deal. That means more targets heading Jones' direction. He's due for a breakout, and the evening before 4th of July feels like it will happen. Okay, so they're saying sit Tevian Jones, wide receiver Calgary. The Stamps added Tevian to help stretch the defense. So far, the veteran pass has yet to live up to his specialty. Jones started the season with an 8.8 fantasy points in week 1, but has scored just 7.3 in 2. He has been unable to establish consistency with Vernon Adams Jr., 15,000, catching just half of the 60 targets thrown in his direction. A more telling number is the 8.0 average depth yards per target Jones has managed as he is 0 for 2 in targets over 20 plus yards in depth. He's streaky and Jones will thrive in Edmonton last season. He's streaky and Jones, who thrived in Edmonton last season, will return. Right now, it's best to be patient and eventually establish a rapid with Vernon Jr. or Vernon Adams Jr. Game 3, or Game 2, I should say. Hamilton 1 and 2 at Toronto 1 and 3. They're saying start Greg Bell, Hamilton, 9,000 salary. Greg Bell calf missed week 4 over the Alouettes, but has been involved fully in practice this week. All signs towards him returning to the lineup in time to face a Toronto defense, allowing 131 yards per game with a 5.5 yard clip. Although he averaged 12.8 fantasy points in his games, we know Bell is capable of much more. He rushed only 13 times for 60 yards as he pass catch power 12 catches for 76 yards on 15 targets has blustered his fantasy production. The Ticats offense has yet to explode, and it feels like if Bell starts clicking, the rest of the O will follow. Don't be surprised if Bell breaks out for 20 plus fantasy points for the first time this season. Sit Kevin Brown, running back, Toronto 4,000. Right now, the running game has felt more plotted than rushing. Toronto is last in the league with 46.5 yards per game, and a league low 3.6 yards average. Kevin Brown has 7 of the 12 carries in week 4 over the Red Blacks, but finished with 11 yards. He has 15 yards on 10 carries, 2 appearances for Toronto, vastly different than his 25 games in the league. Brown amass 1,627 yards with Edmonton. The Argos will continue to give Brown opportunities to find stride, with Nick Arbuckle 8,700 leading the league in passing yards. Their running lanes should start to develop for Brown. However, fantasy years should avoid him until the 22-23 version of Brown decides to head east. Next is BC at Montreal. Tyler Sneed, Montreal, 10,000. Finding consistent playmakers has been challenged thus far for fantasy. Allow us to introduce to you to Tyler Sneed, already made everyone forget about his injury plague 2024. Sneed has averaged 14.3 fantasy points in the past 3 games, averaging 59 yards per carry. His sixth in the league with 270 yards, and open field juice has led him to 117 yards after catch, placing him third beyond Hatcher Sr. 11,500 and Saskatchewan's Sean Johnson 10,000. Yells are optimistic that the return of star pivot Davis Alexander 13,000, and if he's atop of the depth chart on Friday afternoon, fantasy so good about about adding Sneak to their week 5 lineup. Sit Montreal running backs. The Alouettes have a jumbled backfield. Veterans Sean Thomas Arlington has cooled off after the strong start. Rookie Travis Thaddeus has dealt with injuries, while fellow newcomer Stevie Scott III, 2,800, has yet to record a single touch from scrimmage. Clarity has yet to visit Montreal's running game, but as if Al's running back is necessary, then Thaddeus would be a good choice. He averages 6.8 yards per carry and has 4 receptions for 30 yards. We selected Thaddeus as our week 5 sleeper running, but if you are squeamish to gamble again on him against BC, the league's worst defense, we get it. Time will determine if someone breaks out from the pack, or if this is a full blown backfield by community. Till then, it's best to watch from afar. And last game, 1-3 Ottawa versus at 0-3 Edmonton. They're saying start Trey Ford. Trey Ford is healthy. That alone gives him the edge considering that half the league use backups for. What gives him the bigger edge? Running more often. Ford has just once ran just once for yards in the loss to Winnipeg, while the Elks are pleased with his progression as a passer, uh, neutering percent count for exposing defenses with his legs from maximizing his uh, full potential. Look for Edmonton to right the wrong this week, and Ford can hurt a defense with his arm and his legs, and facing Ottawa defense that allowed a league worst 10 completions of better than 30 yards can open up the explosiveness of fantasy love to have anchoring their line. Sit. William Stanback, running back, Ottawa, 87 or 8900. Daniel Adnaboye is the running Red Black starting running back. William Stanback continued to be a piece in week 4, finishing with 1.6 fantasy points, while Daniel Adnaboye tallied 4.6 points in the loss to Toronto. Neither total is impressive, yet Ottawa appears committed to giving the younger Adnaboye the bulk of the touches. Stanback is still capable of returning as the feature back if this requires, but for now, the 1,000-yard rusher and the Grey Cup champion will have limited value. So those are our key notes for Week 5 for fantasy. This is Rick from Hamilton Sports Central, and have yourself a great rest of your day.